Let me say that again. I am not black, okay? Hear me out. Growing up, my mom absolutely hated when we refer to ourselves as black. She's like, you're not black, you're Nigerian, you're African. I feel like the term someone is black obviously comes from the slave era, but it also just describes displaced people that don't know their heritage. So I feel like people that do know their heritage, to try and curb racism in some way, people are going to be racist. Ignorance is ignorance. You can't. But just curb racism in a small way. Stop referring to yourself as black. You know, if you know where you're from, you're raised in a certain household. You know, Somalians are Somalians, Ethiopians are Ethiopians, Nigerians are Nigerians. Like, if you know where you're from, why refer to yourself as a color? I feel like when we say black, it just sounds so harsh and like, this is black. I'm brown, you know, I'm Nigerian at the end of the day. Like, that's who I am, that's where I come from. So I understand when you say black British or black American, because you don't know where you're from. You're just a person of color in the city that you're in. Obviously, you'll still be treated the way you're treated, but just like, I feel like it just, when I hear someone refer to me as black, it just sounds so harsh, especially coming from a certain demographic. I think if you have the privilege of knowing where you're from, you shouldn't refer to yourself as a color, because it further, pushes the racism narrative and further divides us, to be honest. And I also think it's a mindset thing, because I remember that podcast where there's I think they were Somali. They're like, we're Somalians, we're not black. And everyone had a problem with that. Okay, if you're not black, what are you? Like he said, he's Somalian. He's not defined by a color that doesn't even fit the category of his skin. I know this is a very nuanced conversation, and obviously it depends on your mindset. And some people are like, I beg, I'm black. Okay, you're black. For me, and for a lot of other people, we don't want to be described by a color, because I feel like it further pushes that the racist narrative and also further divides everybody. We're all human beings. We come from different walks of life. I come from a country where the sun is always out, so of course adaptation, my skin is going to be melanated, and I feel like just knowing who you are adds to a person's character and how they hold themselves, so you don't have to just be reduced to a color. Unfortunately, that's what some people are facing, because they don't know where they're from, and of course that's not their fault. African American, you don't know where you're from, but you're obviously from Africa, so I prefer African American. At the end of the day, I feel like it's not something that's just going to be disappeared. It's not just going to go like, oh, let's all stop calling each other black, but it definitely is something to consider.